Each morning, Jack Durkin would make a quick walk through the woods bordering Lorne Field before starting his weeding. He never found any alcowies growing there and didn't suppose he ever would. Those suckers probably had to grow up straight. Either that or they didn't have sense to try to find a less obvious place to push up out of the ground. But you'd think after 300 years, they'd catch on that coming up into Lorne Field wasn't doing them any good. Or maybe they just wanted to do it on their own terms, expecting to eventually wear down the generations of Durkins who weeded them out. He knew looking through the woods was a waste of time, but it had become a matter of habit with him, so he performed his morning ritual and, as usual, found the area free of alcowies. Standing at the edge of Lorne Field, he gazed out and saw thousands of the little suckers push themselves out of the ground, maybe 2 inches high already. Even at that height, they could take off a finger if you weren't careful. And if you were to trip and fall to the ground, they'd slice you to ribbons before you could get up. Alcowies grew fast, as much as a foot in one day. Come dusk, they stop, almost as if they needed to rest for the night. Then the next dawn, they'd start growing all over again. There was no movement among the alcowies. When they were that small, they played possum and tried to act as if they were nothing but weeds. Most people, looking at them, would think that they were nothing but a odd little weed. But Jack Durkin knew differently. If he squinted right, he could make out their evil little faces in their offshoots, and he knew those little pincers were more than thorns. He'd watch them wait until there was a wind, then pretend they were swaying in it, all the while really trying to wiggle themselves further out of the ground. They were clever little suckers. Jack Durkin had to give them that. Once they got to 2 feet in height, they wouldn't bother with their act. At that size, they'd be whipping about as if they were caught in hurricane gales, not giving a damn about keeping up their masquerade. Jack Durkin never let one grow that high, but he'd heard stories from his pa about it. According to his pa, it took hours to subdue several of them that had gotten to that height, having to first throw boulders on top of them to pin them down. According to the Book of Alcowies, 8 days would be all one needed to mature and break free from the ground. One mature alcowie would wreak havoc. A field of them would ravage the world in a matter of weeks. Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'll be giving a quick book review of the short novel, The Caretaker of Lorne Field, written by Dave Zeltserman. It's a book that most readers typically either love or hate, with only a handful of the reviews out there falling between the two camps. The story was published in 2010 by Dave Zeltserman, a Boston-based author best known for his thriller and crime novels. NPR, the American Library Association, and several other media outlets have selected his works as Book of the Year in the past. Zeltserman made his first step into the horror genre with this novel, The Caretaker of Lorne Field. It was positively received by several reviewers. It became a contender for Best Horror Novel of 2010 on the American Library Association list and was called a horror gem by Library Journal. Most of the premise can be summarized in that excerpt from the book I narrated in the beginning. Jack Durkin, the protagonist of the novel, lives far outside of a small town somewhere in New England. He's the 9th generation of his family assigned to weed a field for most of the year. Creatures called alcowies continually grow in this field throughout the year. Jack Durkin's job is to pull the monsters out of the ground before they grow to their full height. According to Durkin, they are more than capable of destroying the town, and even the world, if they manage to grow to that height. Durkin is getting old, and he is preparing to train his eldest son to assume his role. However, Durkin's wife is determined to change their situation. The pay for the caretaker of Lorne Field hasn't been altered for inflation for many years, leaving the family living on a shoestring budget. She's starting to think Durkin is insane, and he is determined to keep doing his job no matter what. It's a great premise, and Zeltserman uses it to further a brief story, in which he crafts some good psychological horror. I'll leave it there. I enjoyed this book quite a lot. Overall, the writing style of the dialogue and the setting reminded me a lot of some early creepypastas. It can be cheesy at times and gets a little gory and quite depressing. However, it continues to build up suspense, up to the final page. It feels very grounded despite the fantastical elements of Durkin's job. Overall, I'm surprised that this book has flown under most people's radars for so long, so I decided to make a very short video covering it. I would recommend The Caretaker of Lorne Field. It's easy to find online, can be found in print at online used bookstores, for a reasonable price. Alright, that's it for tonight. Take care.